National suicide, how Washington is destroying the American dream. Ladies and gentlemen, it's happening before our eyes. We may have crossed a dividing line between a prosperous nation and a bankrupt nation. It took more than 200 years for America to accumulate a $10 trillion national debt. But with government spending out of control, it may take only 10 years to double that. Paul Strand has this look at what that debt could cost everyone in this country.
People have always accused government of being out of control, but that was before this latest wild leap in government debt and deficit. Tim Phillips heads up Americans for Prosperity, a group that advocates shrinking government. He points out the entire economic output of America is around $13 trillion a year, but the federal debt
could reach $2 trillion this year alone.
By next year, that means the share of federal government debt for each American family of four will be $160,000. And there's so much mismanagement by the politicians, it's about to become a crisis, like for Social Security.
Within 2 to 4 years, it will probably be taking in less money than it puts out in benefits. And since they've spent all the money in the supposed lockbox, which Al Gore famously talked about, it's not there now.
And the politicians who created this crisis are now creating a $1 trillion reform of health care that creates
51 new agencies, on top of the hundreds and hundreds of agencies we already have that deal with health care, 51 brand new ones.
The new book, National Suicide, describes one particularly huge example of waste and out-of-control spending, the welfare programs that cost some $700 billion a year, more than Medicare or the military. That's some $65,000 for each family under the poverty line. But what's amazing is that with that amount of spending for decades, the number of poor has only grown, not shrunk. And that's just one example of government at work.
Investigating reporter Martin Groves is the author of A National Suicide. That's his book, How Washington is Destroying the American Dream from A to Z. And Martin, welcome back to the 700 Club.
Well, thank you. It's always good to be with you, Paul.
Listen, suicide, is this true, and how soon will the suicide take place?
Well, we're right in the midst of it. We have the razor blade right at our throat. Mm-hmm. And the result of many years of wasteful spending and of not paying attention to money. Mm-hmm. It's as if we had a credit card. It's so bad that we have 1,399 federal programs just for the rural areas. Some of them are 70 years old. They're not cataloged. No one has any idea how much money they spend, and it goes up every year.
You mean to tell me that there are almost 1,400 programs about rural areas and alone, and people don't even know what they are?
As a matter of fact, the Federal Home Loan Bank Board spent some money for a study because no one knew how many. And they found out, and they say that's useless because they're all conflicting. No one knows where they are. We have 27 programs for teenage pregnancy, 50 for the homeless. We have thousands of duplicative programs throughout the country. And they're not cataloged because the congressman passed the bill, get the publicity, and then forget about it. And it's gone. There's no sunset. And we must have 10,000 programs. Now, in welfare, for example, I found out that there are 86, not one, but 86 different welfare programs, uncatalogued, not computerized, and it's $65,000 for every poor family in America. But of course, they don't get the $65,000. They're lucky if they get $10,000. The rest is just eaten up by the bureaucracy, this mammoth organization. There are 30,000 staff members just for Congress, and that's why the bills are 1,400 pages. Ike put in the interstate highway bill 45 pages. And today, you could read that. Today, there was a time where they couldn't have one copy of a highway bill. They put the box in the well of the Congress so you could kick it, smell it, and you had to vote an hour later because Thanksgiving was coming up.
But you couldn't read it.
Couldn't read it. No one had read the bill. Now, the problem is that next Thursday is a milestone, $12 trillion debt. This year, not 1.4, but 1.95 deficit. And how do we know? Because if you go to Treasury Direct on the Internet, the Treasury Department issues the real numbers. It was $10 billion, $4 billion in last year, and now it's virtually $12 billion, 1.95 deficit, not 1.4. Now, what they do is they cheat because they take the surplus of Social Security, spend it, It's gone, and they count it as if it exists.
How do they manage that?
They manage that with double bookkeeping, just like crooks have two books for the IRS.
Yeah.
One is the real fake book, which politicians use and the public gets, but the Treasury Department audits because they have to be accurate because they're the ones who control the final books. Mm-hmm. So the difference between one and the other, for example, Clinton claimed he had a $559 billion surplus. He had a $444 billion deficit, a $1 trillion lie. Now, who found it? The Treasury Department. He was using the Social Security surplus as if the money was really there, but it's gone. All the IOU pieces of paper.
Right.
So basically, it's not only that we have trouble, but that the lies are confusing the people to keep them quiet.
How far in the hole is Social Security, do you figure?
Oh, Social Security money stolen as of today is $2.2 trillion.
$2.2 trillion.
Now, that money has to be made up elsewhere because the baby boomers won't have it. We have to raise FICA taxes 50% to pay for the baby boomers. Now, if we raise the FICA taxes 50%, the corporations will go broke.
Yes.
It'll be a 22% tax, and the people their paychecks will be diminished.
Well, what are we going to do? This country is right on the brink of bankruptcy. That's what it is. It's bankruptcy.
That's right. You see, legally, country can go bankrupt, but they can be dissolved. We didn't defeat the Soviet Union on the battlefield. Mm-hmm. They committed suicide.
Yeah.
And that's going to happen to us. Now, how do we change it? We have to understand that politicians are different than you and I.
They're not like real people.
They're different kind of people. They're egocentric maniacs.
Yeah.
They want publicity. And everyone in the Senate wants to be president of the United States.
Everyone.
He figures if he spends more money, this group will love him, or that group. In my last chapter, I show how to save $600 billion a year in waste. It would take me 1 week, and maybe it'll take the government 10 years, but there's no intention of doing that.
Yes.
The intention is, how much money can we spend to secure this vote or that vote?
Well, that was Roosevelt's mantra, tax and tax, spend and spend.
Right.